Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. Now, no one will be expecting me to be on at this time. It's rare for me to come on in the evening, because for those of you who don't know, I am Vicky Marie and I am based in Spain, in Europe. So it is actually just gone midnight here in Spain. So it's very unusual for me to come on at this time. But there's a few things I wanted to talk about. And normally I would do a live early in the morning. Um, but tomorrow I can't be sure that I'll have time to do it. So I thought I'd come on tonight and do it. And then it's done, isn't it? Let me put my banner on. But listen, thank you. Thank you for watching. If you do make it on here, thank you for watching. Thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing. Don't forget to leave your DNA on the subscribe button. And of course, your fingerprint on the like button. Special thank you, as always, to my members, to those of you who buy me Ko-fis, send PayPals, etc. Support my channel in any positive way. Thank you so much. So yeah, here I am at midnight. Now I could say something there, but I won't. It's midnight. It's not always midnight. Anyway, some people will understand that joke and some people won't. So, what have I come on to talk about? Well, I've come on to talk about Rex Heuermann. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I don't care really. I don't care if I pronounce his name right. It's really annoying that I can never spell his name. I've probably spelt it wrong on some of the videos that I've done about him. I don't care about that either. Because for anyone who doesn't know, Rex Heuermann, or whatever his name is, he's just pled guilty, went ahead and pled guilty I think, to the murder of 8 women. One of which I don't think he was actually even charged with. But anyway, these are the women, and we're going to go through all the names of the victims after I show you what happened in court today. It's important that we talk about their names. I think all of them were SEX workers, and so they were very vulnerable. Rex, when his wife was out of town, he liked to let his hair down a bit, and yeah, by murdering women. So I think there's quite a few things I want to say. I want to talk about the victims, of course. I want to show you Rex's pleas today in court. And I want to talk a little bit about Rex's family and how it will have affected them, and how it seems strange to me how people are really, lots of people in the true crime world, really being nasty about his wife, because she lived with him all the years they were married, quite a long time. I think it was about 30 years or something, and didn't know he was a serial killer. So I just wanted to talk about that a bit, because it's really starting to annoy me the way people are being horrible to her. She's got enough to contend with. I don't know her. She might be a horrible person. She might be a lovely person. I have no idea. But just because her husband did these awful things, it's not fair, to cast aspersions on her, because if there was any evidence that she had anything to do with it, the police would have arrested her. Just leave her alone. She's a secondary victim. Anyone who thinks that could not happen to them, just look at all the other cases where it's happened. BTK, Israel Keys. Do you know Israel Keys? He lived with his girlfriend and his daughter, and he took one of his victims home and kept them in the shed so that he could go and abuse them later. He then went on a cruise with his girlfriend and his daughter, and then came back and assaulted this poor girl, the corpse again. Then he pretended she was alive. He sewed her eyes open, made it look as if she was alive, and put a newspaper in front of her, and then put a ransom note out and extorted money out of her family. He did that while in his shed, in his home. Ed Kemper. He used to cut up his victims in his home. He drove to a psychiatrist meeting from previous murders that he'd done with a head in the boot of his car. He fooled all these psychologists into thinking he was fit to be out in the, out in society. He'd already killed his grandparents. And then they released him and he went on and killed a load of co-eds and his mother and his mother's best friend. These are sociopaths. Nobody, you could know one. You could live next door to one. You could be sleeping next to one. You wouldn't know. You don't know. And even if you suspected something, the denial is a very strong, powerful emotion. Look at Richard Allen's wife, the Delphi murderer. Not only his wife, but a lot of people still denying that it was him, Lucy Letby. Anyway, but as far as families are concerned, yeah, BTK. They all, they're there at home. The SWAT team turns up and says, "Oh, your dad's a serial killer." Ted Bundy fooled everybody. Had a girlfriend, a long-time girlfriend. Fooled the woman that he married in court. Until he ended up confessing to his killers. You could just go on and on and on. There's an endless list. So I think we should leave this woman alone. I think it's really wrong that people are being nasty to her. Oh, got a couple of people up late. Anyway, hi Tracy, hi Daniel. Couple of people up and about. I know most of my followers, they won't be expecting me to be on at this time, so I don't know if the notifications have gone out or not, but hopefully might be a few more people coming in chat. Hi to all of you in chat, and hi to the lurkers, the lovely lurkers. Hi to replay crew. Thank you for watching. So, this man. So it's so intriguing, this case. I mean, the reason I call him Shrek on the thumbnail, that's how people refer to him. Some people, that time, because he's a huge man, huge, tall, overweight. He's as you can see, he's not the most handsome man in the world. Anyway, he liked escorts. He used a lot of escorts and probably used quite a few escorts that he didn't murder. What made the difference between the escorts that he did murder? I don't know. And I also don't know why he stopped, because serial killers don't normally stop. But I don't think he's actually killed. I think it was 2011, the last victim that we know of course, because there may be more victims. Anyway, let's have a look at his court appearance of all, and this is him. Please, and look how smug he is. Now, he reminds me so much of Rader, BTK, because he enjoyed his day in court. I think with a lot of these serial killers, because they have to do everything in secret, they can't exactly tell anyone about it. So they can't go off bragging, like, "Oh yeah, I killed this sex worker last night," or, they can't be open about what they do, about their hobbies. When people have something like I say a hobby, but something they enjoy doing, they normally like to talk about it, don't they? Of course they do. If somebody, whatever you do in your spare time, especially if you really enjoy it, you want to talk about it. And just their personalities of serial killers, being a narcissist, they want to talk about it. You could see that with Dennis Rader. he was dying to talk about it. He enjoyed talking about it. He went through everything in detail. It's like reliving all these murders over again. Well, so I said some do. Now, Israel Keys was an exception to that. He didn't want to talk about it. He did talk about it for a bit because he was trying to get what he wanted was he wanted the death penalty, but he wanted it instantly because what he didn't want was his daughter to find out what he'd been doing. So anyway, that didn't happen. So he ended up taking his own life in prison. But most other serial killers that quite like talking, they quite like talking about it afterwards. Gacy, he was a talker, wasn't he? And Dahmer, Jeffrey Dahmer, lots of them. Dennis Nielsen, over in the UK there. Lots of them like to talk about it once because they're able to talk about it so long, and they things, they're proud of the fact of the murders that they got away, so they're dying to talk. When the dam breaks, as soon as they start talking, you normally can't shut them up, can you? That Colonel Russell Williams, he was another one. Keep it inside for so long, and then when they enjoy talking about it, and talking about it is like living it again. So let's have a look. Let's have a look at it, and then hope it shares okay. The internet seems a bit dodgy. Let's see. Which one is it? As Rex Heuermann is talking, it does look so smug, really, really smug. It almost looks like he's enjoying it. I mean, I don't know who's cut his hair. I think he must have cut his hair himself. Oh my God, look at that haircut. Even in prison, they don't normally have a terrible haircut like that. So he's sort of dressed in a suit, it's a bit rumpled and what have you. Now, this guy in real life, if you like, in his normal life, let me just make sure it's sharing. He was an architect. He had a good job. I presume he was the breadwinner. I don't know what his wife did. But yeah, he was quite a successful architect to all intents. Serial killers, they are successful in their professions, aren't they? They can compartmentalize their life so successfully. You just can't underestimate how they can compartmentalize their lives, and they literally live amongst. You could know a serial killer, but you wouldn't know. And it's always the friends, the neighbours, the wives, the partners, the children, or whatever. It's always like, well, we had no idea, and then people don't believe them. Well, we have to start believing them because that's common, for families not to have any idea of what their dad or whatever is capable of. Okay, let's watch this. So this is him pleading guilty.
Yes, Your Honor. How old? 16. Yes, I have.
Have you had enough time to discuss this case with your attorney?
Yes, I have.
After discussions with your lawyer, you feel it's in your best interest to plead guilty rather than go to trial.
Yes, Your Honor.
Are you satisfied with the manner in which your attorneys represented you in this case?
Yes, I am.
I must say that the attorneys on both sides of this case have been excellent, unbelievable lawyers. Do you understand that by pleading guilty to a charge, that is the same as you would have gone to trial and been found guilty of that charge?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you understand that by pleading guilty, you're waiving a number of very important rights?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, now these rights include your right to a
So he's very respectful, isn't he? Yes, Your Honour. Yes, I understand. Another thing I've noticed about a lot of serial killers, they're quite prissy, aren't they? You know, they're going around doing these horrible things, you know, like, murdering people and maybe even, having sex with their bodies or doing terrible things. But they're quite prissy in life, how can I explain it? Sort of like they're doing all these horrible things in the background in their secret life, but in their sort of public life, they're going to church or they're the pillar of the community, such a nice person who would help anyone. And also a lot of the time they're quite sort of, prissy about, like pretending to have morals. Do you know what I mean? Looking down on people, maybe homeless people or drug addicts or stuff like that. Like, I don't know, they're so prissy, and he reminds me of that. And again, Dennis Rader was that. It was Dennis Rader. He was a scout leader, a pillar of the church. They're always a pillar of the church. I don't know if Rex was, but they sort of put on this aura that they're better than everybody else, but in secret they're doing these awful, awful things. And Rex just strikes me as straight out of the textbook for that. Speaking of which, part of the acceptance of his plea is he has to help out the FBI with insight into serial killers. He has to, and I think that's good. I think that is something that serial killers can do, and I think it's a positive thing in favour of not having a death penalty. I think they should be required to sit down with behavioural agents and try and give some insight. I mean, the problem is you don't know if they're going to be telling the truth, of course. They could be playing with the agents, sit down and say, oh, yeah, this is why I did it. This is how I felt. This is black. I mean, they could say, there's a lot of things they could say that might not be true. They might just be playing games. But I still think, it's certainly Ted Bundy gave a lot of valuable insight into apprehending the Green River Killer. Another one, Ed Kemper, he's given a lot of, because you can't shut him up. Ed Kemper can't stop talking, or he's quite elderly now, so I don't know what his physical state is at the moment. But as long as he could talk, he would talk to anyone. He loves talking about it all. Of course, for him, it was all his mother's fault. But, and it's unlikely that it was all his mother's fault. But, yeah, I do think that this is valuable insight that the FBI can get from these serial killers, because nobody knows how a serial killer thinks like a serial killer does. I mean, even the best FBI agents in the world, the best behavioural sort of profilers, they're not serial killers, are they? So there's always going to be some of it that they just can't wrap their head around. I suppose with experience they start to get more insight, but it's quite must be quite sort of draining that. Imagine starting to understand how a serial killer's mind works. You don't want to understand how their mind works, do you? But anyway, Rex can help with that. That's for sure. And he will probably enjoy helping with it, because it will make his prison life more interesting for him. Going over his crimes, that'll be the only pleasure he's getting, like from the pleasures they used to get. So talking over, I really think he will enjoy talking about it, to be honest. As I say, because once these killers are caught, they normally do enjoy talking about it.
Trial by jury or by the court. The right to have the prosecution produce evidence and witnesses to prove your guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Your right to cross-examine those witnesses and your right to testify on your own behalf or to remain. Do you understand those rights as I just explained?
Yes. Yes, Your Honor.
How old are
62.
you?
Yes.
Justice case with your attorney?
Yes, I have.
After discussions with your lawyer, you feel it's in your best interest to plead guilty rather than go to trial.
Yes, Your Honor.
Are you satisfied with the manner in which your attorneys represented you in this case?
Yes, I am.
I must say that the attorneys on both sides understand that by pleading guilty to a charge, that is the same as if you had gone to trial and been found guilty of that charge.
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you understand that by pleading guilty, you're waiving a number of very important rights?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, now these rights include your right to a trial by jury or by the court, your right to have the prosecution produce evidence and witnesses to prove your guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, the cross-examine on your own behalf or to remain silent, your right to call witnesses or submit evidence on your behalf. Do you understand those? Just
So that was him in the courtroom today. Now, what I want to go through now are his victims. We're going to look at his victims. I'm going to read out their names. I'm going to put the picture up of them all because they deserve to be talked about. So that will be, I'm going to do that now. And then I will be off to bed. I can never spell this guy's name anyway. I mean, the world's a safer place with him hidden, you know, in prison, and you never know, he might bring some insight into solving other cases, because there are unsolved cases still of serial killers. So let's have a look. What have we got? The victims. So I'm going to put the picture of the victims up and I'm going to read about them. Each one. And it's so important because quite often with serial killers, their names get remembered, don't they? But the victims don't. You know, the problem is there's often so many of them, and when we've got 8 here that we know for sure that we can talk about, and we can talk about their names, we need to remember them, you know. But it's quite often it's the serial killer's name that gets remembered, and the victims get forgotten. Not forgotten, but you know, not remembered individually. And as I say, sometimes that's because sometimes there's so many of them. You couldn't list Ted Bundy. Well, you could list Ted Bundy's known victims, but then there's a lot that we don't know about as well. And the Green River Killer, he was just countless victims. You know, and quite often they are SEX workers because they are the most vulnerable people, because you know they're easy to target and, you know, get into a place, get them into the car, get them into your home. You know, they're just easy prey, aren't they? You know, so it's very sad. Really, it's very sad. Anyway, I'm going to read you about these girls, and God bless all of them. And I hope, you know, that's some justice for them today. I hope they can see it. I hope they're smiling somewhere, to just see that, you know, he is going to prison for the rest of his life. I don't know if he's actually been sentenced yet, but that's what it'll be. It'll be life without parole. So let's have a look. So we've got Sandra Costilla, a 28-year-old woman from Trinidad and Tobago, killed on November the 19th or the 20th in 1993. in December 2024, 31 years after her death. Now, it's interesting, isn't it? You think how long he's been doing this. I think there's bound to be more victims out there. Anyway, but maybe we'll find out as time goes on. Heuermann was charged with her murder. DNA from hairs found on her body matched his. She was living in New York City at the time of her disappearance. Her body was discovered in November 1993 by hunters in a wooded area in North Sea, Long Island, approximately 60 miles northeast of Gilgo Beach. She is the earliest known victim included in the murder charges against him, suggesting that he allegedly began killing in the 90s or earlier, and that he disposed of bodies in locations beyond the Gilgo Beach area. So although he's known as, known as the Gilgo Beach murders or the Long Island murders, he could have, his victims could be anywhere. So that was Sandra Castilla. Then we've got the Gilgo Four, and these were the victims that were discovered in December 2010, when the police were searching for Shannon Gilbert, a completely unrelated case. So Maureen Brainard Barnes of Norwich, Connecticut, 25. I mean, these are young women. She was last seen on July the 9th, 2007, saying she planned to spend the day in New York City. She was never seen again. She worked as a seasonal telemarketer, and she turned to sex work when she was unable to find other employment. A mother of two, she advertised as a sex worker on Craigslist to pay her mortgage. She'd been out of the SEX industry, I should say SEX really, because YouTube won't like this, but never mind, for 7 months, but she returned after receiving an eviction notice. This is it. I don't think people choose this profession for fun. It's like, not because they enjoy it. Sometimes it's the only way. She's a single mother with 2 kids, and she's got to put a roof over their heads. It's very sad. So her body was found in December 2010. She'd been restrained with 3 leather belts, and DNA found on one of the belts matched the wife of Heuermann. Now, this is a reason why the wife gets this flack from everybody, but her DNA's bound to be on it. It could have been her belt. But, she lived in that house because a lot of the murders happened in the house where they lived. Okay. Melissa Bartholomew, 24, of Erie County, New York, went missing on July the 12th, 2009. She was living in the Bronx and working as an SEX worker through Craigslist, and she used the alias Chloe. The night she disappeared, she met with a client, deposited $900 in her bank account, attempted to call an ex-boyfriend but did not reach him. And then, beginning a week later, because this is the other thing that Heuermann did, he phoned. Her 15-year-old sister received a series of vulgar, mocking and insulting calls from a man, possibly the killer, using Bartholomew's phone. And the caller asked her whether the girl was a whore like her sister. So now that some of these calls were traced to Madison Square Garden, Midtown Manhattan, and Massapequa, but the police were unable to identify the caller. So, so Melissa was 4'10", tiny girl, and 95 pounds. and her remains were the first discovered during the search for Shannon Gilbert. Then we've got Megan Waterman, 22. Well, these girls are so young. Scarborough, Maine, went missing on June the 6th, 2010, after posting escort advertisements on Craigslist. She was a victim of sex trafficking. Her boyfriend was arrested on sex trafficking charges on April the 11th, but he's not believed to be connected to her disappearance or death. And she was discovered on June the 8th, 2010. Then Amber Lynn Costello, 27, of West Babylon, New York, went missing on September the 2nd, 2010, after leaving to meet a stranger who had called her several times and offered her $2,500 for her services. At the time, the family believed she was in a residential drug rehabilitation center, so they did not immediately report her missing when she stopped responding to messages and calls. So it was her roommate that provided police with a description of the unknown client. I think they're the ones who described him as looking like Shrek, and the first generation Chevrolet Avalanche she was driving. And more than a decade later, this information helped lead investigators to Heuermann as a suspect. Before moving to West Babylon, she had lived with her second husband in Clearwater, Florida, and worked as a waitress. She'd been a strong student but became addicted to drugs as a teenager. She had been sex assaulted by a neighbor when she was 6 years old. And she was also tiny, 4'11" and weighed 45 kilograms. So then we've got Valerie Mack, Melissa Taylor, or Manorville Jane Doe, and Jane Doe number 6. They're all different because at first they didn't identify her. So she was living in Philadelphia and working as an escort when she went missing in 2000. Like many of the victims, she was small in stature, approximately 5 foot, and weighed approximately 45 kilograms. She'd been in foster care from an early age and was never reported missing. She was the mother of a young son. Her partial remains were discovered in New York on November the 19th, 2000, but were not identified until 2020. Her torso was found wrapped in garbage bags and dumped in the woods near the intersection of Halsey Manor Road and Mill Road, adjacent to power lines and a nearby access road. And then a head, right foot and hands found on April the 4th, 2011 were initially classified as belonging to an unidentified victim known as Jane Doe number 6. God, number 6. I mean, God, how many John and Jane Does are there out there? In 2020, officials determined that these remains belonged to the same woman whose torso had been found in 2000. And that then finally on May 28th, the remains were identified as Valerie Mack. Who else have we got? Jessica Taylor, 20, living in Manhattan when she went missing on July the 21st, 2003. On July the 26th, her torso was discovered 45 miles east of Gilgo Beach in Manorville, New York, and was identified later that year through DNA analysis. Her torso was found atop a pile of scrap wood at the end of a paved access road off Halsey Manor Road, just north of the Long Island Expressway. Plastic sheeting was found beneath the torso, and a tattoo on her body had been mutilated with a sharp instrument. And then additional remains found on March the 29th, 2011, including her skull, hands and forearm, were matched to Taylor. She had worked as a SEX worker in Washington, D.C. and Manhattan. Then Karen Vergata. Now this is the one that's only just recently been sort of linked. And this girl, she's a little bit older than the others, 34 years old. Fire Island Jane Doe, because she, again, Jane Doe number 7, she was unidentified for a long time. So she was a 34-year-old woman from Manhattan, believed to have been working as an SEX worker when she disappeared in 1996. She was last seen around February the 14th and was never 1996 and was never reported missing. Very sad when they're never not reported missing as well, isn't it? This is why these women are so vulnerable, and predators like Rex, they pick on these women because people don't even report them missing, because they probably go missing quite a few times, and people just think, oh, they're doing that, or they're in rehab, or whatever, and it's just horrible to think that nobody had reported. I think that's this girl here, I think, but it's awful, isn't it, to think that they weren't reported missing? Just so sad, because their lives meant something. They were people, whatever that they fell into, their life, into drugs or into SEX work or whatever. But it can happen to anyone, really. It can happen to anyone. It can happen to your loved one. It could happen to you. You just never know. You can't judge these people, these poor women, and then they become, they are the target of predators, because predators like Rex, they know they're easy victims. So she was finally identified through genetic genealogy in 2023, so not that long ago. Her severed legs were found in a garbage bag on Fire Island on April the 20th, 1996. 15 years later, on April 11th, 2011, her skull and several teeth were recovered at Tobay Beach. And they were the second set of remains found in Nassau County that day. Anyway, DNA testing linked these remains to those found on Fire Island in 1996. And it's been suggested that her legs may have drifted over to Fire Island. How awful. So that's the other thing. So, we can't underestimate the when you saw him all smug there, yes, Your Honour, like, butter wouldn't fucking melt in his mouth. And this is what he did to these girls. He's bound them, he's strangled them, because he said he said they were all deaths by strangulation. He's dismembered them and hidden their bodies in all different places. So, he's like the worst of the worst, isn't he? There's nothing that you could say about this man that there's no redeeming features here whatsoever. He's done everything, he's sort of abducted them, he's held them captive, done whatever God knows SEX way to them, restrained them, tortured them. They must have been terrified, and then he strangled them, and then he's not, as if that wasn't all enough, then he's dismembered them and took them off and just dumped them like rubbish. Now there's a couple of there's a couple of other people that were found, weren't there, on the Gilgo beach, but they haven't been linked with Heuermann, have they? So, there were so many bodies on that beach, and it's like not all of them are to do with Rex Heuermann. I mean, I'm only gonna talk about the ones that we know were to do with him, because there's Asian doe, the body of a young Asian person who had died from blunt force trauma, was discovered on April the 4th, very close to the 4 sets of remains where they'd been found. Now, although the victim was found wearing women's clothing, they think it was a trans woman between 17 and 23 years old, between 5'3" and 5'9", missing 4 teeth, and may have had a skeletal condition. Anyway, basically that person has never been identified even now. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Do you think that might have been someone that Rex had picked up and then found that it was a man? And you could imagine, so blunt force trauma to the face. Now, I don't know if Rex is ever going to admit to this murder, if it was him, because, you could imagine that he'd get quite angry if he discovered he'd picked up a trans woman. And maybe that's why this person died of blunt force trauma to the face. Blunt force trauma rather than strangulation, but I'm just totally speculating there. This particular person may be nothing to do with Rex whatsoever, but it's just a thought, isn't it? Anyway, they've never been identified. And then there's a separate case, and this is, I don't know if you've ever seen anything about this, but there was Tanya Jackson, Peaches, and her baby, Tatiana Dykes. But these are nothing to do with Heuermann, so I'm not going to read those out. So I've read out to you the victims, Rex's victims. And as I say, they're the ones, that we should be thinking about now. I hope that it's given their families some satisfaction, some cold comfort, if you like, that at least, this man has appeared in court, But yeah, so smug. I think I've got another video of him somewhere appearing. Let's see. There it is. I've got a closer up one. Let's take off this picture and have a look at that. Just look, he's just there like he's, I don't know, paying a parking ticket or something. You vile man. See if you can see that. Let me share it. Yeah. Smug, horrible man. Ah.
Promises to you in return for your plea of guilty.
The only thing I want to interject, Judge, Mr. Tanny has indicated.
And again, an obvious question, but I have to ask it. Do you understand that as a result of this plain sentence, you will be convicted of a felony, and that such conviction will result in an enhanced sentence if you are convicted of a felony in the future? Do you understand that?
Yes, I do.
Has anyone, myself, your lawyer, the prosecutor, or anyone else, made any promises to you in return for your plea of guilty?
The only thing I want to interject, Judge, Mr. Tanny has indicated in exchange for the pleas that we're going to enter into this morning, there'll be no further prosecutions on the 8 victims that he's referenced. He is also, my client is also obligated to completely, truthfully, and fairly cooperate with the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Behavioral Analysis Unit as part of what we just discussed.
His face.
The promises made to you?
Look at his face. God. So part of he's got to cooperate with the FBI. That's part of his conditions.
Now, do you understand?
Listen to that
This
again.
question, but I have to ask it. Do you understand that as a result of this plea and sentence, you will be convicted of a felony, and that such conviction will result in an enhanced sentence if you are convicted of a felony in the future? Do you understand that?
Yes, I do.
All right. Has anyone, myself, your lawyer, the prosecutor, or anyone else made any promises to you in return for your plea of guilty?
The only thing I want to interject, Judge, Mr. Tanner has indicated in exchange for the pleas that we're going to enter into this morning, there'll be no further prosecutions on the 8 victims that he's referenced. He is
No further prosecutions on the 8 victims. Now, do you see his face there? I feel like he's thinking about what he did to those women there. He's going back on it in his mind. He's got a picture in his mind there, hasn't he? He'll just keep replaying it. Now, do you think he did stop murdering women in 2011 or whatever? Serial killers rarely stop, do they? I mean, I suppose maybe as they get older, maybe they do, or maybe had some sort of physical. He's not in the best health, that's for sure. I read that the last court hearing, he didn't turn up, or he turned up in a wheelchair or something because he's got something wrong with his foot. He was actually, it was actually oozing pus because, he reminds me of King Henry VIII. That's what happened to him, wasn't it? He had all these problems with his legs and everything because of his weight. And, so he's not in the best of health, though. He looks reasonably healthy there, doesn't he? Of course, he's got the best doctors now, hasn't he? I mean, at the end of the day, this man now, he'll be looked after for the rest of his life with all his, health conditions or whatever. He'll get the best help, won't he? And he won't have to pay for it. The American taxpayer will be paying for it. Still, anyway, I don't believe in the death penalty as much as, sometimes you see cases and you think, oh, these people don't even deserve to breathe. But I just don't think the state killing someone, to me, is still wrong. And I still feel like that is the way I feel. I don't agree with the death penalty. And also, it takes so long and everything, and it's a bit of a mess, isn't it? Most of the, and then it's how do you do it? And it doesn't matter how they do it. It never seems personal. I think if it was me, I'd rather go for this firing squad thing. You'd want something pretty quick, and to know. Sometimes you hear stories of people, it takes them minutes, to die or whatever. And I don't like that kind of thing. But anyway, Rex isn't going to get the death penalty. He's going to get life in prison, and he's got to chat to the FBI, try and give them some help.
also, my client is also obligated to completely, truthfully, and fairly cooperate with the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Behavioral Analysis Unit as part of what we just discussed.
Any other promises made to you?
Other than what I just said.
No.
Are you pleading guilty voluntarily of your own free will?
Yes.
So, are you pleading guilty voluntarily of your own free will? He goes, yes. Just the thought of his face being the last thing you see on this earth. Those girls must have been terrified. I mean, he looks scary, doesn't he? Really, I suppose that all serial killers are pretty scary, but just the size of him, and he's picking like tiny girls, 5 foot tall, less than 5 foot tall, 45 kilos. 45 kilos, it's nothing, is it? And that reminds me of Ed Kemper a bit. He was a great big guy. I think he was 6'9" or something. He just towered above everyone, and a big, heavily built guy as well. And he picked tiny girls as well. So I don't know if that's because that's what they find most attractive, or if they just think they'll be easier to overpower. Watch it one more time.
I understand, again, an obvious question, but I have to ask it. Do you You understand that as a result of this plea and sentence, you will be convicted of a felony, and that such conviction will result in an enhanced sentence if you are convicted of a felony in the future. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do.
Has anyone, myself, your lawyer, the prosecutor, or anyone else made any promises to you in return for your plea of guilty?
The only thing I want to interject, Judge, Mr. Tanner has indicated in exchange for the pleas that we're going to enter into this morning, there'll be no further prosecutions on the 8 victims that he's referenced. He is also, my client is also obligated to completely, truthfully, and fairly cooperate with the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Behavioral Analysis Unit as part of what we just discussed,
Any other promises made to you?
other than what I've just said.
No.
Are you pleading guilty voluntarily and of your own free will?
Yes.
It's horrible, but it's sort of weirdly fascinating, isn't it? But it's good news, of course. That's it for him now. Guilty. It's not, his family and the families of the victims. It's a life sentence for them, though, isn't it? And it's him who's done it. It's him who's done it, and that's where all the anger should go, not towards his family, not towards his wife. When you look at this picture, God, if only she knew, what was going to happen in the future. She looks, well, he even looks happy there. It's the biggest smile I've ever seen him make. He's not exactly a smiler, is he? But yeah, she looks happy. She probably thought she'd won the lottery when she married him. That's ironic, isn't it? Imagine it was probably, this lovely guy I've got, he's an architect and he treats me like a princess. And all the time now, whether he'd already started killing then, I don't know, but he was certainly harbouring thoughts. Because even if you don't just, these killers, they don't just wake up one morning and think, I know, I think I'll kill someone. They build up to it with fantasies over years, but they lead normal lives in the meantime. All this is getting married. Ed Kemper was engaged to be married. Ted Bundy had his long-term girlfriend, and then he got married to Carol. Isaac Keys, he had his girlfriend and his child. BTK, he was married with 2 children. They all, I think it's difficult for us to get our head around, isn't it? I don't know about you, but, if I look back over, I've never, trying to think if I've ever had to lead a double life. I don't think I ever have, really. Maybe sort of like only little things. And that's hard enough. It's hard enough. I'm trying to think of an example. Living 2 lives, telling lies. I'm the worst liar in the world. I am the worst liar in the world because to me, I just find it really hard to lie. Even when sometimes, sometimes you have to tell little white lies, don't you, or whatever, but it's difficult. I feel like people would know instantly if I was lying, but these people, the lies are effortless, aren't they? Lies just roll off the tongue. And anyway, and this is his wife now, or this was when Rex was first arrested. That's his wife, that's his son, I think it's his stepson, and that's his daughter. And they've all come under, attacks and everything, because they all lived in that house where a lot of the things are thought to have happened. And they still live there. But as I think I've said in other videos, where else are they going to live? Maybe, what are they living on? I don't know. If he was the breadwinner, he was the architect, he was the one going out and earning the money. Where else are they supposed to live? That's been their home for years. So, you think, oh God, I couldn't live there, but you'd be surprised what you could do if you had no choice. Anyway. So they're the secondary victims. I call them the secondary. So these are obviously the most important people that we'll be talking about, that we've been talking about, the actual victims that we know of. There's undoubtedly more victims out there. He's 62 years old, this guy. So, he's had many years to God, it's brilliant that he's been caught, because he's had many years of freedom, hasn't he? He's got to, I think these days, hopefully, because of all the advances in DNA and technology and etc., hopefully serial killers won't get away with it for all these years like they used to. They get caught earlier, hopefully, because there's more ways of catching them now. And that's how he was caught, wasn't it, with DNA? But yeah, hopefully we won't see anything like this again, and anybody who does start off fledgling serial killer will get caught pretty early on. But okay, so I just wanted to come on and tell you about that and talk about it. It was on my mind, and as I said, I don't think I'll get a chance to do a live early in the morning. Now, earlier when I was getting ready for this live, I was going to have a cup of tea, because I was thinking, right, I'll be going to bed soon. And I put coffee in my mug. Instead of a tea bag, I put a spoonful of coffee. It was just automatic, because normally I'll have a coffee with my lives in the morning. So I'll probably be up all night now, because I've had a coffee. But I doubt it. I think I will get sleep. I'm quite tired. But anyway, thank you for being here with me. Thank you for caring about these victims. As always, let me know what you think. Please don't forget to like the video. Please put your DNA on the subscribe button. I'll keep you updated about this and any other case. And actually, just before I go, I will just check. I don't think there's been any update on the Nancy Guthrie case. I don't think so. But just in case, we'll check while I'm on here. No, everyone's predicting it's going to break soon. But they've been saying that for days. Every day we say, oh, hopefully there'll be a break today, but there isn't. But hopefully there'll be one today. So, okay, so look after you, because you are the most important person. And I'll see you really soon in the next video. And until then, may your God go with you. Thank you. And God bless these women. Bye.